Lieutenant James "Hawkeye" Harrison stared at the side of his M880 hover tank, head tilted thoughtfully, as he contemplated the perfect font for his kill count tally. Behind him, the ruins of Houston's outer defense ring smoldered in the Texas heat. "What do you think, Jackson?" he called out to his gunner. "Classic military stencil, or are we feeling fancy?" "I'm thinking Comic Sans, just to mess with the battalion commander." Sergeant Kelly Jackson poked her head out of the tank's turret, her face streaked with carbon scoring from their last engagement. "Sir, with all due respect, if you put Comic Sans on my tank, I will personally feed you to the next Zarkax patrol we find." Bold words from someone who's 3 kills behind Peterson's crew. Harrison grinned, already starting to sketch out the traditional stencil pattern. "Speaking of which, how's the betting pool looking, Martinez?" Private Carlos Martinez, recently transferred from Miller's famous Denver squad, consulted his tablet. The young Marine had quickly become the 3rd Armored Division's unofficial bookie. "Current pool's at 15,000, sir, mostly riding on whether Baker Company can beat our weekly record. They're getting close." "Can't have that," Harrison muttered, adding another tally to their count. "Jackson, next patrol we see, they're all yours. I've got 20 cases of real coffee riding on us, staying on top." The Zarkax observation drone hovering silently above the scene transmitted everything back to the alien command ship. In their strategic center, the alien commanders watched the exchange with a mixture of horror and fascination. "They're turning it into a game," Sub-Commander Vixthal noted, his crystalline features reflecting the holographic display. "Just like the defector warned us. But surely this will impact their combat effectiveness." His question was answered 30 minutes later, when Harrison's tank company encountered a Zarkax heavy assault column. The aliens' superior technology should have given them the advantage. Instead, the human tanks moved like they were performing a choreographed dance, their crews operating with almost reckless enthusiasm. "Target locked." Jackson's voice crackled over the company channel. "Hey, Peterson, watch this." Her shot threaded between 2 buildings, catching the lead Zarkax vehicle in a vulnerable spot where the shields met the hull. The resulting explosion lit up the Houston skyline. "Show off." Lieutenant Peterson's response came through along with the sound of his own tank's thunder. "That still only counts as 1. Harrison keyed his command channel, while his company systematically dismantled the alien formation. "All units, remember the rules. Clean kills only, no kill stealing, and if anyone quotes Top Gun again, they're on latrine duty for a month." "Too late, sir," Martins called out. "Baker 6 just did the 'talk to me goose' line again." "Add it to their tab," Harrison sighed, though his grin never wavered as he watched his company work. "And someone tell command that Highway 10 is clear. Again." Later that evening, as the human forces regrouped and updated their kill boards, the Zarkax command staff reviewed the battle footage with growing concern. "They're not just fighting us," a junior analyst observed. "They're competing with each other. Every engagement is treated like some sort of sport, with rules and points, and wagering." Sub-Commander Vixthal studied the images of human tanks, their sides decorated with kill counts and squad nicknames. "Have we observed any other species behaving this way in combat?" "No, sir. Most species show increased stress and decreased performance in extended combat. The humans." The analyst paused, double-checking his data. "Their performance is actually improving. They're learning, adapting, and having fun." "How do you fight an enemy that treats war like entertainment?" Vixthal wondered aloud. The answer came in the form of a transmission they intercepted from Harrison's tank. The human lieutenant's voice was casual, almost cheerful as he reported. "Command, this is Hawkeye. Area secured. 14 confirmed kills. Also, tell Baker Company they owe us dinner. Best 2 out of 3, and we smoked them." In the command center, Vixthal made a note to review the defectors' psychological report again. Perhaps they had underestimated just how different these humans really were. Private First Class Kevin "Joker" Martins was the first to notice something odd about the enemy transmissions they were intercepting. He'd been monitoring Zarkak's communications since the Battle of New Austin, and something had definitely changed. "Hey Cap, you need to hear this," he called out to Captain Rebecca Chen, pushing his headphones across the communication station. "Third transmission today. Different unit. Same pattern." Chen listened, her expression shifting from confusion to amazement as the alien chatter played through. The Zarkak's warriors were bantering. "Did that one just make a joke about their commander's crystal formation?" she asked, incredulous. "Yes, ma'am," Martins grinned, and listened to how the others respond. The recording captured something that should have been impossible: the sound of Zarkak's warriors laughing. Not the formal acknowledgement of humor they'd been taught in cultural integration classes, but real, genuine laughter. On the other side of the front lines, the Zarkak's high command was facing an unprecedented crisis. Supreme Commander Vixthal stood before the War Council, his crystalline features rigid with concern as he played the evidence. "Squad 17, formerly one of our most disciplined units, now refers to themselves as the Thunder Chickens," he reported, his voice heavy with dismay. "They've painted this symbol on their transport vehicles." The holographic display showed a surprisingly well-rendered drawing of a chicken wielding lightning bolts. When questioned about this breach of protocol, Vixthal continued, "Their squad leader claimed it improves unit cohesion and makes them look cool." These are direct quotes. One of the council members shifted uncomfortably. Perhaps some minor deviations in protocol could be tolerated if they improve combat effectiveness. Improve. Vixthal brought up another display. "They've started making wagers on battle outcomes. Unit 23 has created something called a kill count leaderboard. And most disturbing of all," he paused, steeling himself, "they've begun creating what humans call memes about their combat experiences." Back at the Human Communication Center, Martinez was compiling his daily report when another transmission caught his attention. This one made him call not just his captain, but the entire command staff. "You're sure about this translation?" General Hayes asked, reading the intercept for the third time. "Yes, ma'am," Martins confirmed. "A whole battalion of Zarkak's troops just refused a direct order to attack a civilian population center. Their exact words were, 'That's not how the game is played.'" Colonel Blackwood, who'd been quietly observing, finally spoke up. "It's not just that they're learning our tactics or copying our behavior. They're internalizing our values. Our way of war isn't just about how we fight. It's about why we fight, and what lines we won't cross." The evidence kept mounting. Young Zarkak's warriors were creating their own battle traditions, forming bonds beyond military necessity, and most worryingly for their high command, beginning to question orders that conflicted with their new ethical framework. "They've started naming their weapons," a frustrated Zarkak's officer reported. "Squad 17's heavy gunner calls his plasma cannon Bob. When I demanded an explanation, he said it just looked like a bob." The final straw came during a routine patrol near the Arlington defense line. A human scout team, led by Martinez himself, encountered a Zarkak's reconnaissance unit. Instead of the expected firefight, something extraordinary happened. The alien squad leader raised his weapon in what took Martinez a moment to recognize as a casual salute. "Hey, Thunder Chicken 3 here. You must be the jokers from the radio chatter. Nice work at New Austin. That music thing was pretty cool." Martins found himself returning the salute before he could think better of it. "Thanks. Love the logo, by the way. Very classic rock album cover." Both units looked at each other for a long moment before mutually agreeing to report their patrol routes clear of enemy contact. That evening, The Zarkak's high command received a report they'd been dreading. Their psychological contamination protocols had failed. Humanity's influence wasn't just spreading. It had become self-sustaining. Their warriors weren't just fighting like humans. They were starting to think like them, laugh like them, and most dangerously of all, dream like them. As one junior officer put it in a quickly suppressed message, maybe the humans are right. War doesn't have to be just about killing. It can be about living too. Lieutenant Sarah Walker found the last intact bar in Seattle by following the sound of laughter, both human and alien. The sign above the door was half melted, but she could still make out the words Ground Zero Pub. Somehow, it had survived 3 major battles and the final peace talks. Inside, she found exactly what the intelligence reports had described. Members of the Thunder Chickens, the now famous Zarkak's unit that had started the military culture revolution, sharing drinks with Marines from the 15th MEU. Their crystalline forms caught the bar's dim light, creating dancing patterns on the walls. "Lieutenant," a familiar voice called out, "pull up a chair. We're teaching Vix here about human victory traditions." She recognized Private Martins, now sporting a fresh set of sergeant's stripes, sitting next to a young Zarkak's warrior, who was carefully examining a shot glass. "I don't understand," the alien, presumably Vix, was saying. "You consume this liquid to celebrate victory, but it temporarily impairs combat effectiveness. This seems counterintuitive." "That's kind of the point," Martins explained, grinning. "The war's over. We don't need to be combat effective right now. That's what peace means, being able to let your guard down." Walker settled into a chair as the Zarkak's warrior contemplated this. Around them, other mixed groups of humans and aliens were engaged in similar cultural exchanges. Someone had started teaching a group of Zarkak's officers how to play pool, while in another corner, an alien was making a surprisingly good attempt at karaoke. "I have a question," Vix said suddenly, his crystal features catching the light in what Walker had learned to recognize as an expression of deep thought. "When did you know you had one? Not the war, but us." "The music thing in New Austin," Martins suggested. Walker shook her head. "Earlier than that. Remember those first prisoners we took? The ones who started humming along to our songs?" "All of you are wrong," a new voice interrupted. They turned to see Max, the original Zarkak's defector, now serving as a cultural liaison. "You won the moment your staff sergeant finished his sandwich during first contact." The bar grew quiet as Max continued, his voice carrying the weight of someone who'd finally figured out a long-standing puzzle. "You see, our entire military doctrine was based on fear. Fear of failure, fear of superiors, fear of death. We used that fear to conquer 17 species. But humans," he gestured around the bar, "you found a way to turn fear into friendship, horror into humor, and war into, what's the word?" "A party," Martins suggested. "An art form," Max corrected. "You turned it into an art form. And art is contagious. You can't fight art with fear." Walker watched as a human Marine taught a Zarkak's warrior the proper form for a fist bump. "So what happens now? Your high command can't be happy about all this fraternization." Vix made the crystal chiming sound that passed for alien laughter. "They're too late. The changes have already spread through the younger generation. Did you know some units are already requesting permission to add human-style rank structures with nicknames?" "The Thunder Chickens started a trend," Martins noted proudly. "More than a trend," Max said quietly. "A revolution. Our civilization has spent 10,000 years building an empire on perfect obedience and emotional suppression. Then we met a species that laughs in the face of death, finds joy in chaos, and treats war like a dance. He raised his glass in what he learned was a human toast. You didn't just beat us. You made us better. You taught us how to live. Around the bar, both humans and aliens raised their glasses. Someone started playing Sweet Home Alabama on the jukebox, and to everyone's amusement, the Zarkax warriors knew all the words. Later that night, as the impromptu party wound down, Walker found herself standing outside with Vix, looking at the stars. "Your people will keep coming back to Earth, won't they?" she asked. "Of course," the alien replied, his crystal features reflecting the starlight. "But not for war. We'll come back for the same reason anyone returns to their teachers, to learn more about how to smile." Above them, a shooting star traced a path across the Seattle sky. Both human and alien watched it together, sharing a moment of peaceful silence before breaking into simultaneous grins. The war was over. The learning was just beginning. Staff Sergeant Jake Miller had always believed that the end of the world would be more dramatic. Instead, humanity's first alien invasion caught him mid-bite into a turkey club sandwich at a small deli just outside Peterson Space Force Base in Colorado. The first plasma bolt struck downtown Denver at 12:47 p.m. Mountain Time. From his vantage point, on the deli's outdoor patio, Miller watched the violet-tinted explosion bloom against the Rocky Mountain backdrop, like some exotic species of deadly flower. He took another bite of his sandwich. "Hey, Martinez," he called out to the wide-eyed private across the table. "You owe me $20. Sergeant." Private First Class Carlos Martinez managed to tear his gaze away from the growing number of crystalline ships appearing in the Colorado sky. "Last week you bet me aliens would show up in New York first." Miller carefully wrapped the remaining half of his sandwich in its paper. "Denver counts as somewhere else. Pay up." The absurdity of the request finally broke through Martinez's shock. A grin spread across his face as he reached for his wallet, even as another explosion rocked the city center. "Man, Sarge, you're something else. World's ending, and you're collecting debts." "World's not ending, Martinez." Miller stood, brushing crumbs from his uniform with deliberate precision. "It's just getting interesting. Now call the squad. Tell them to meet at Rally Point Charlie. And tell Thompson to bring those experimental rail rifles he's been tinkering with. Looks like we get to field test them after all." Within 20 minutes, the 12 members of Miller's Special Operations Squad were assembled in the underground bunker that served as Rally Point Charlie. As the ground shook above them, Miller noted with pride that every single one of his people had shown up with a grin. "Ladies and gentlemen," Miller addressed his squad while testing the weight of one of Thompson's rail rifles. "I know we've all seen the movies. Independence Day, War of the Worlds, all that Hollywood nonsense. But this." He chambered a round with a satisfying hum of electromagnetic coils. "This is better. Because unlike those movie heroes, we've actually trained for this. You trained us for an alien invasion, Sarge." Lieutenant Sarah Cooper asked with a raised eyebrow. "I trained you to adapt, to improvise, and to overcome." Miller's grin widened as the bunker's screens lit up with tactical data. "And I trained you to enjoy it. Speaking of which, Thompson, what's the pool up to?" Technical Sergeant David Thompson consulted his tablet. "Standard betting pool for first confirmed kill is at $2,400, Sarge. Want in?" "Put me down for 100 on Cooper." Miller checked his combat rig one last time. "She's been itching for a fight since that training exercise in Buenos Aires got canceled." The first Zarkax ground forces to enter Denver encountered something their strategic AI had calculated as statistically impossible: organized resistance within the first hour of their surprise attack. Even more baffling was the psychological profile of the human defenders. Their combat doctrine predicted mass panic, disorganization, and the psychological breakdown common to species experiencing first contact through military conquest. Instead, they found themselves engaged with small units of humans who moved with professional precision and, most disturbingly, seemed to be enjoying themselves. Target confirmed. Center mass. Cooper's voice crackled over the squad's comm channel, followed by the sharp crack of her rail rifle. The alien warrior's shield technology, designed to stop plasma weapons, proved embarrassingly ineffective against kinetic projectiles accelerated to hypersonic speeds. First kill, pay up everyone. Damn it, Cooper. Martinez's mock complaint carried over the sound of his own rifle fire. I had money on Thompson. Miller watched through his tactical display as his squad systematically dismantled the alien advance team, their banter never ceasing. The Zarkak soldiers, encountering human combat behavior for the first time, made the fatal mistake of assuming the laughter and jokes indicated a lack of seriousness. They would learn, far too late, that humanity's warriors smiled brightest when the fighting was hardest. It was the first lesson of many that the stars would come to fear. Captain Amanda Reynolds had seen a lot of strange things since being assigned to the Pentagon's Xenopsychology Division, but a 7-foot-tall alien scientist stress-eating Twinkies in her secure interview room was definitely a first. So let me get this straight, she said, watching the defector, who had chosen the human name Max, unwrap his 6th snack cake. You abandoned your position as chief military psychologist for the Zarkak's fleet because of a report you wrote. Max's crystalline eyes shifted nervously. Not because I wrote it, Captain Reynolds, because they ignored it. His clawed hands carefully separated the cream filling from the sponge cake, a habit he'd developed in the 3 days since his defection. Your species. You're not like the others we've conquered. You're different. Dangerous. Amanda leaned forward. Dangerous how? Our technology is centuries behind yours. You have energy shields. We have tanks. You have plasma weapons. We have gunpowder. And yet, Max's voice dropped to a whisper. Your Staff Sergeant Miller's squad eliminated our entire Denver advance force while making jokes about a human entertainment program called Top Gun. He pushed a data crystal across the table. This contains my full analysis. I've been studying your species since first contact. What I found. He shuddered. The High Command called my conclusions impossible. The crystal contained over 300 pages of detailed psychological analysis. Amanda's eyes widened as she read. Human combat psychology presents a fundamental paradox. Their effectiveness increases proportionally with their apparent enjoyment of the conflict. This defies all known models of warfare. Species should not become more lethal when they are having fun. Most concerning is their use of humor as a combat multiplier. Human units share jokes during active combat, a practice that should impair focus but instead appears to enhance unit cohesion and combat effectiveness. They have transformed the horror of war into a form of entertainment, complete with competitions, traditions, and ritualized behaviors. Recommendation: immediate withdrawal of all Zarkak's forces. This species has evolved to find joy in chaos. We cannot defeat an enemy who celebrates the very things that should break them. Amanda set down the report and studied the alien across from her. They'd really ignored this. Max unwrapped another Twinkie. The High Command said I had been contaminated by human psychological patterns. They said no species could possibly. He paused, searching for the right words. How do your people say it? Vied with the warfare. Despite the gravity of the situation, Amanda couldn't help but laugh. The sound made Max flinch. Sorry, she said, but you just made a joke. A bad one, but still, you're starting to get it. That's exactly what terrifies me, Max replied. 3 weeks studying humans, and I'm already beginning to think like you. Do you know what your Marines in Atlanta did yesterday? They painted kill counts on their tanks, in hot pink, with little heart symbols. Let me guess, the 15th Marine Expeditionary Unit. You know them. They're famous for their style. Amanda started making notes. The hot pink is new though. Usually, they stick to neon green. Max's expression became even more troubled. Captain Reynolds, you don't understand. I studied 17 different species in combat situations. All of them fight out of duty, or survival, or glory. But humans, he crushed the empty Twinkie wrapper in his massive hand. Humans fight like it's the most natural thing in the universe, like it's a game you've been playing since before you had spaceflight. That's because we have been, Amanda said quietly. Look up the Battle of Thermopylae when you get a chance. The Spartans combed their hair before the fight, knowing they would die. We've always found ways to smile at death. Max's crystal eyes met hers. That's why I defected, Captain, because my people need to understand what we're really fighting. This isn't a war of technology. It's a war against a species that has turned combat into an art form. And the most terrifying part, he unwrapped another Twinkie, his hands shaking slightly. You're teaching us how to enjoy it too. Major Tom Lucky Davidson of the 75th Ranger Regiment had been in worse situations. He just couldn't remember when. All right, ladies and gentlemen. He addressed the 11 Rangers sharing the circular alien holding cell. I think it's time we address the real problem here. Staff Sergeant Rebecca Coast Raider Wilson looked up from where she was examining the shimmering energy field that served as their cell door. The fact that we're prisoners on an alien warship, sir. Worse. Davidson shook his head solemnly. The acoustics in this cell are terrible for our traditional Thursday night karaoke. The Rangers stared at their commander for a beat before breaking into grins. They'd been captured for 3 days, and Davidson had made it his personal mission to drive their alien captors to distraction. I don't know, sir, Lieutenant Mark Jackson chimed in, running his hand along the curved wall. If we use the concave surface right, we might get some decent reverb. In the observation center adjacent to the detention block, 3 Zarkax intelligence officers watched the exchange with growing frustration. They're doing it again, Sub-Lieutenant Kexry reported, her crystal features reflecting the monitoring screens. This is the opposite of how psychological breakdown is supposed to progress. Her superior, Intelligence Commander Ravelon, studied the humans with a mixture of frustration and fascination. 3 days of isolation. No information about their forces. Minimal food and water. And their organizing. What did they call it? American Idol. Prison Edition. Sir, Kexry consulted her notes. They've already established rules and a judging panel. Down in the cell, the competition was getting underway. Private First Class Jimmy Snapshot Rodriguez had just finished a surprisingly decent rendition of Sweet Home Alabama. 6.5, Davidson declared, using his best reality show judge voice. Good energy, but you went flat on the chorus. Oh, come on, Rodriguez protested. That's at least a 7. The alien guard started tapping his foot. Speaking of our hosts, Wilson cut in. We should invite them to compete. That tall one with the facial crystals looks like he could hit the high notes. The observation room erupted in confused chatter, as the guards indeed found themselves being invited to join the competition. One young warrior actually seemed tempted before his superior yanked him away. This is impossible, Ravelon muttered. We've broken hardened warriors from 17 different species. These humans, they're actually building unit cohesion in captivity. The final straw came during Davidson's interrogation. Strapped into the neural induction chair, he should have been experiencing extreme discomfort. Instead, he was critiquing the setup. You know what this chair needs? He asked his interrogator conversationally. Cup holders, and maybe some lumbar support. I'm going to feel this in my lower back tomorrow. You are experiencing level 3 neural induction, the frustrated interrogator reminded him. You should be in agony. Oh, Is that what that tingling is? Davidson actually looked disappointed. Sorry, but after that time, I got taste at a bachelor party in Vegas. My standards for agony are pretty high. Great story, though. Want to hear it? When the intelligence officers finally gave up and returned him to the cell, he was met with enthusiastic applause from his rangers. How'd it go, sir? Wilson asked. Well, I think I really connected with them, Davidson replied, settling back against the wall. They're going to think about the cup holder idea. Also, we're being moved to their main prison facility tomorrow. Perfect timing, Jackson noted. We were running out of songs here anyway. Later that night, as the Rangers taught each other harmonies for Bohemian Rhapsody, Intelligence Commander Ravelon made a final note in his report. Traditional imprisonment and interrogation techniques are completely ineffective against human subjects. They appear to view captivity as an opportunity for what they call team-building exercises. Most disturbing is their ability to maintain group cohesion and high morale through shared cultural rituals and inside jokes. Recommendation: avoid taking human prisoners if possible. They're more dangerous in captivity than in combat. As if to punctuate his report, the sound of 12 Rangers launching into a perfect multi-part harmony drifted through the station's corridors, accompanied by the unmistakable sound of their guards starting to hum along. Colonel Michael Blackwood's presentation to Allied Command started with a single image: a Greek warrior's shield, 2,500 years old, with a grinning face painted on its surface. This, ladies and gentlemen, he addressed the room full of military leaders from around the world, is why the Zarkaks are losing their war. General Elizabeth Hayes, Supreme Commander of Earth's Combined Defense Forces, leaned forward. Explain, Colonel. Blackwood gestured, and the holographic display shifted to show multiple images throughout human military history. The Zarkaks have conquered 17 species across 12 star systems. In every case, they used the same strategy: superior technology, overwhelming force, and psychological warfare. But here's the thing. They've never needed to develop beyond that because it always worked. Until us. The display showed a split screen. On one side, footage of a Zarkaks infantry unit moving in perfect, emotionless formation. On the other, Marines from the 15th MEU dancing to Staying Alive between firefights. The defector's intelligence confirmed what I suspected, Blackwood continued. The Zarkaks never developed psychological warfare countermeasures because they never needed to. Their targets always broke. But humans. He smiled. We've been playing mind games on the battlefield since before we invented writing. The display shifted again, showing historical images: Spartan warriors combing their hair before Thermopylae, Scottish Highlanders playing bagpipes in the face of English artillery, British soldiers playing soccer in no man's land during World War I. Every major human culture has traditions of turning battle into a performance, Blackwood explained. The Vikings had battle songs. The samurai had poetry. The Marines had their shanties. We don't just fight wars. We create culture around them. Fascinating historical lesson. General Hayes interrupted. But how does this help us win? Because, General, the Zarkaks are starting to break. Blackwood's expression turned serious. Their psychological warfare depends on fear and intimidation. But how do you intimidate an enemy that treats combat like a sport? How do you break the morale of soldiers who hold dance competitions during siege warfare? He pulled up recent combat footage. A squad of Marines taking selfies with a disabled alien tank, Army Rangers playing cards under enemy fire, fighter pilots racing each other through alien defense grids while cracking jokes. The Zarkaks built their empire on the assumption that war is pure mathematics. Superior force equals victory. But humans, he chuckled, we treat war like jazz. We improvise. We style on our enemies. We turn battlefields into stages. Intelligence Officer Maya Rodriguez raised her hand. Are you suggesting we're winning because we're not taking the war seriously enough? Just the opposite, Blackwood replied. We're winning because we've had thousands of years of practice at taking war so seriously that we had to learn to laugh about it. The Zarkax never had to develop that psychological armor. They never had to turn horror into humor just to stay sane. He showed one final image, a recent photo of Zarkax prisoners, caught on camera attempting to recreate human fist bumps. And here's the real victory. They're learning from us. Their younger warriors are starting to imitate human combat behaviors. They're developing inside jokes, unit nicknames, battle cries. Their rigid military structure is breaking down not because we're destroying it, but because we're teaching them a better way. General Hayes studied the image for a long moment. So what's your recommendation, Colonel? Lean into it. Encourage our troops to keep being, well, human. Every time they laugh in the face of death, every time they turn a battle into a game, they're not just fighting the enemy. They're undermining the entire psychological foundation of the Zarkax military. As if to prove his point, the building shook with a distant explosion. Through the windows, they could see alien ships engaging with Earth's defense forces over Washington. And clear through the command center's communications came a Marine unit's radio chatter. Hey, watch this. Bet you $10 I can thread the needle between those two cruisers. 20 says you can't do it, while singing Danger Zone. Blackwood gestured to the radio. That, General, is the sound of us winning this war. Not with better weapons, but with something the Zarkax never expected. The unbreakable human spirit, wrapped in a joke and delivered with a grin. Master Sergeant Emily Rock Rodriguez stood in the ruins of the New Austin Emergency Broadcast Center, looking at the city's sound system controls with the kind of smile that made her squad nervous. Ma'am, Corporal Jason Wright ventured carefully. Command said to take the building. They didn't specify anything about the audio systems. Command also didn't say not to use them. Rodriguez countered, already plugging her personal device into the main console. Besides, these aliens need a proper Texas welcome. The Zarkax had taken New Austin 3 days ago, their crystalline ships casting prismatic shadows over the city's famous skyline. They'd expected the usual pattern: initial resistance, following by gradual submission, as their technological superiority wore down human morale. Instead, they got Marines. All units, this is Rock Actual. Rodriguez's voice crackled over the secure channel. Sound check in 3, 2, 1. The opening riff of AC/DC's Thunderstruck exploded from every surviving speaker in downtown New Austin. The sound echoed off skyscrapers, rolled through the streets, and made the very ground vibrate. High above the city, in their command ship, the Zarkax leadership watched in confusion as their tactical displays lit up with unprecedented human activity. They're dancing. Sub-Commander Vexthar reported incredulously. Multiple human units are advancing while performing synchronized movement patterns. The 1st Marine Company crested the hill near the Capitol building, moving in perfect step to the music. Their weapons fire synchronized with the beat, each burst timed to the drums and guitar. Second verse, same as the first. Lieutenant Sarah Walker called out as her platoon breached a Zarkax defense line. Let's show these folks how we party in Texas. The aliens had prepared for human tactics, had studied Earth's military history, had even started to understand human combat psychology. But nothing in their analysis had prepared them for the sight of an entire Marine division attacking in concert, their movements choreographed to what their database identified as classic Earth rock music. Thunder. The Marines roared along with the song. A plasma cannon exploded. Thunder. They advanced another block. An alien tank retreated. Thunder. The chorus grew as more units joined in. The Zarkax line began to waver. In her captured broadcast center, Rodriguez watched the battle unfold on tactical displays. Right. Who up? Welcome to the jungle next. Can't have a proper party with just one song. Ma'am. Wright reported, trying not to laugh. I'm picking up Zarkak's communications. They're trying to figure out if the music is some kind of sonic weapon. Well, they're not wrong. Rodriguez grinned. Hit the bass boost. The breaking point came when the 2nd Battalion, led by Captain Michael Maestro Anderson, breached the alien command center while performing a perfect call and response to "We Will Rock You." This is tactically impossible, the Zarkak's commander transmitted to his fleet. They're not fighting according to any known combat doctrine. They're enjoying this. The response from Fleet Command was immediate. Withdraw all forces. The psychological contamination is too severe. Multiple units are reporting symptomatic response to human battle rhythms. As the alien ships began their retreat, Rodriguez's voice carried over the citywide speakers. What's the matter, y'all? Not fans of the classics. The after-action report, written by AB News General Hayes, noted, "The Battle of New Austin marks the first time in recorded military history that an enemy force was routed by a rock concert. Marine units report record-high morale, though several NCOs have submitted formal complaints about their troops' excessive air guitar performances during combat." A classified addendum, based on intercepted Zarkak's communications, added, "Most concerning to enemy command was the discovery that several of their younger warriors were found recording the human battle songs for later study. 3 units had to be forcibly evacuated after beginning to display what their medics termed rhythmic combat tendencies." As the sun set over a liberated New Austin, Rodriguez stood on the Capitol steps, watching her Marines celebrate. Someone had rigged up speakers from their combat vehicles, and the opening notes of "Sweet Home Alabama" drifted through the Texas evening. "You know what the best part is?" she asked Wright, who was working on their final report. "We just proved Colonel Blackwood's theory right. The aliens didn't retreat because we beat them. They retreated because we taught them how to rock and roll." Wright finished, adding a final note to his tablet. "Think they'll come back for an encore?"